Hello, and welcome to Starting Points, where one thing leads to another. Here's an example. Last time, looking at some of the people that had various kinds of gardens, there's mention of herb gardens. Some people had an herb garden as part of their garden. Others, that was their whole garden focus. So I want to focus on herb gardens. And I'm going to start with something from fiction and then look at the nonfiction. The fiction comes from a book, a story, The Country of the Pointed Firs by Sarah Orne Jewett, on the coast of Maine, back in time. This book also, this particular edition, has some other stories by her, which are fascinating. I love this story. It was a very moving story. And the story in chapter 2 involves Mrs. Todd. It's where we are introduced to her. Later, there were only one fault to find with his choice of a summer lodging place, and that was its complete lack of seclusion. At first, the tiny house of Mrs. Almira Todd, which stood with its end to the street, appeared to be retired and sheltered enough from the busy world. Behind its bushy bit of green garden, in which all the blooming things, 2 or 3 gay hollyhocks and some London pride, were pushed back against the gray shingled wall. It was a queer little garden and puzzling to a stranger. The few flowers were put at a disadvantage by so much greenery. But the discovery was soon made that Mrs. Todd was an ardent lover of herbs, both wild and tame, and the sea breezes blew into the low-end window of the house laden with not only sweet briar and sweet Mary, but balm and sage and borage and mint, wormwood and southernwood. If Mrs. Todd had occasion to step into the far corner of her herb plot, she trod heavily upon thyme and made its fragrance presence known with all the rest. Being a very large person, her full skirts brushed and bent almost every slender stalk that her feet missed. You could always tell where she was stepping about there, even when you were half awake in the morning, and learned to know, in the course of a few weeks' experience, in exactly which corner of the garden she might be. Well, the concern was that it wasn't secluded enough. The place looked secluded, but in fact, it was a focal point in the village. People were constantly coming to her to consult with her about curing this or curing that, or this problem and that problem, which she had herbal remedies to give them. She'd spent a lifetime, and her knowledge was of value. Well, this man who spent a lot of time collecting and studying and reading about herbs, it is called Stocking the Healthful Herbs Field Guide Edition by Euell Gibbons. And he's probably maybe the first person that I came in contact with about the medicinal uses of herbs. And he's written, this is a fascinating study, lots of interesting information, plus lots of practical remedies that he's actually prepared and used and tried and can pass on. So it's informative. Here's I got a bookmark in here where the stinging nettle was. Well, yes, a stinging nettle, but in addition to their good taste, they are rich in vitamins A and C, amazingly high in protein. Well, and he says one can assume they have many of the essential trace minerals. So one of his little focus plants was how to have a wild thyme, THYME. So he has a sense of humor, but he is meticulous about telling you how he would use sage, and so it's a neat guide, pennyroyal. So one would, it's such a specialized niche that for most people, they're probably wise, unless they get interested, to avoid even, to be careful, because there are plants, if you don't know about them, you haven't made a study of them, you haven't identified them, that are not helpful. For First Nations people, obviously, over time, trial and error, they found plants that were beneficial for treating specific things over time. Here's an interesting book that was done about the pioneers, the settlers that came, Dandelion, Pokeweed, and Goosefoot, How the Early Settlers Used Plants for Food, Medicine, and in the Home. It's by Elizabeth Schaefer. Lovely illustrations in here by Grams Miller. Now, I got a couple of things marked here. Medicine, dandelion, goldenrod. So she's broken the focus up here to plants of the woodland, then the pasture land, and then swampland, and divided it into three categories of medicines, food, and how it might have been used in the household. Pokeweed and or elderberry could be used. So it's I think an accessible enough introduction book for somebody, as even a 10-year-old who's interested in plants. Of course, they have to have access to plants a bit as well, which is, I guess, less and less a alternative when we live with yards that are grass and concrete. If you're even living, able to live where you've got a separate house. So, the Book of Home Remedies and Herbal Cures, Old-Fashioned Remedies, Carol Bishop. I really I think the cover caught my eye, but the inside is delightful as she's made a compendium of remedies and recipes. Common cold, General Washington's cold cure, Texas remedies, Australian remedy, someone who's lives in the Canadian prairies, And so this is a feast for just the reader as well as practical. Bruised or black eye, burns, different remedies and things that have been found to be helpful. So Malcolm Hillier, the herb garden, decorative ways to grow herbs in the garden. So some of the gardeners, as I say, had herbs as a special place and as their sole garden, and some have it as a part of a larger garden, which is what he's proposing. And he's plants from the winter fruits, meadow plants, as it's a visual feast, and that's partly what he's a tranquil retreat. Perfumes, smells, of course, is autumn herbs, paths, low edging. So I think that's a helpful resource. And the illustrated book of herbs, their medicinal and culinary uses. And I couldn't pass this book up because of the botanical paintings. But it seems to be a book that was, it says edited by Sarah Bunney, Bunney, from a text by, and the names look to me to be like Czechoslovakian, Hungarian, Polish, Ukrainian. Those were the two original writers, and the illustrator as well. So now, I haven't gone too far into it, page plate 3. I'm at plate 3. And I come across aconite, monkshood. And in this corner, 2 skull and crossbones. Now, what a wonderful thing to have done that. I don't have to read through the whole text, and there it is. And then, of course, in bold, all parts of the plant are deadly poisonous. It is probably the most dangerous of all British plants. Well, fair enough. In no circumstance should, and this is in bold, monkwood ever be prepared and used for self-medication. Only 10 grams of the root is a fatal dose. All right, I won't have to experiment. Somebody's already done this. Lord and ladies, same problem, same highlights. All parts of the plants are poisonous, especially the scarlet berries, which can be fatal if eaten by children. Should never be used or collected for. Here's another one that's poisonous. So I just thought, whoa, isn't that wonderful? So it's not every one. Deadly nightshade. Well, the name tells you that, but one should recognize the plant. But it says all parts of the plants are extremely poisonous. Just 2 or 3 berries can kill a child who has mistaken them for cherries or bilberries. So I think it's just common oats, no problem. Black horehound, no problem. Daisy, no problem. Oops, bayberry, same thing. All parts of the plant, except for the berries, are poisonous. Except for the berries, are poisonous. Bayberry bark should be used only under strict medical supervision. Well, there are people who are herbalists, and here's borage. Use the flowers and things in salads. Not so. Anyway, corn flour, caraway seeds. Well, thanks for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.